Hey, my friends, it's Dr. Michelle Markham, and I'm here again this week with Dr. Kelly, Dr. Patrick Kelly, and we're going to attempt and believe that we're going to be able to finish our talk today about supplements and quality supplements. So, good afternoon, Dr. Kelly. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Dr. Markham. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you for being here again. And we'll actually be coming back next week, same time at 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern time on Friday to finish this because we just have such a huge amount of information to cover. And so today we're going to be talking about some kind of general ideas around how do we, as consumers and practitioners too, but especially for consumers, how do we know how to like look at a website or a supplement label or whatever it might be and know, is this a good supplement for me to be taking, or is this something I should probably throw out, put back on the shelf, and walk away from and get some really good stuff? Because unbeknownst to a lot of us, the supplements that are primarily on the market and have been for some time, a lot of them can actually do more damage to us than good. And so even that whole idea of, well, I'll just finish this bottle and then I'll go get some may not even always be the best choice. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. So we're going to be talking a lot about that today. And so some people, a lot of times when I talk to chiropractors about supplements, and I started kind of mentioning this last week, is people think chiropractors, and this is like, I don't know, Dr. Kelly, if you've ever run into this before, but a lot of people will get that idea that chiropractors are only dealing with bones and joints. And they don't really know that chiropractors actually in school, they spend more time learning nutrition than a medical doctor actually does. So if anybody's qualified in this world to talk about supplements and nutrition and about how it affects the body and how it can change things, related to the spine and how the spine can help the supplements actually work better with the body if the spine's in alignment, there is probably no better person to talk to about that than a chiropractor. Is
Now,
that
I
true?
agree. That is absolutely true because a lot of people don't realize that. And I think people just assume with our medical doctors that they have all this training in various branches. And the fact is that in medical school, they don't get any nutritional education. When in chiropractic school, we do get that. And also, the one thing about the good majority of chiropractors is we're interested in the whole body, not just so much the spine, and how important nutrition and good supplements are with the care that we give. So,
Yeah.
when you do question a chiropractor, the majority of us have had some training, and we didn't leave it in school. We continued to, I know I do, and a lot of my colleagues continue to get education in proper nutrition and including supplements. So it's very important.
Absolutely. And that's, some there are physicians that do verse themselves, medical doctor physicians, MDs and DOs, who will continue to do some continuing education because they do have interest in that. And I think we might see a little bit more of that now as the natural. I don't like to call it alternative medicine because I believe that this old school traditional medicine that you and I practice is like the real deal. I think it is the really important stuff. And unless you are suffering from an acute injury where you have something, that just, like a train hit you, or, you fell out of a tree and broke your leg. That's where medical doctors are really great in emergency medicine in that acute setting. But, when it comes to chronic conditions and, getting our bodies to really function optimally on the best level, to really get us in that self-healing mode, we really need to focus on the traditional methods, which include a lot of nutrition too. So
I agree with that. And I
important.
think what a lot of people need to understand or they're not sure of is the body has the capability of healing itself. We're not 100% self-healing. If we were, there wouldn't be any type of doctors and we could just go about doing what we need to do. So by removing the interferences that are not allowing the body to heal, and you incorporate those things that help and assist the body, it's a win-win. And it's true that there are medical doctors, and both you and I know them, that have done continuing ed training, learning more about nutrition and supplements because they see that there's a big need for it. Because the majority of people who are on medications, in my viewpoint, it's just slowing down the inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of medical doctors do understand that if we could put good nutrition in the body can start healing, and people are going to feel so much better. And that's what true health is. Because if you're on medication, you're not healthy.
No, you're you're kind of hiding under a blanket, like, you know, oh, it's not, yeah. So like you can get through the day when you're on medication and not be maybe burdened by the symptoms of whatever disease that you're suffering from or dis-ease. But you're truly not, exactly, you're truly not healthy, and you're just prolonging and possibly even building up more issues under the surface that you just are not really aware of too. So, you know, maybe some more disease is actually happening underlying where you're not really aware of it. And all of a sudden it's going to blindside you. And then you're going to wind up with a cancer or an autoimmune disease that people will think like, wow, this just came out of nowhere. But in fact, it actually has been kind of laying low in your system, building, you know, this energy to just come up and be like, here I am, I'm a cancer, or here I am, I'm an autoimmune disease. And now you're really severely sick.
And with social media, it's good and bad in the way of accessing information, and we want to get the right information. And just because a person's not a doctor or some type of health provider doesn't mean they can't learn things and investigate things. I tell my patients all the time, you should question my authority, ask questions, because it's your health, and the harsh reality is our health is our responsibility. Whether you're a lay person or some type of practitioner,
yes,
we're looking for answers and what's the best solution.
Absolutely. And I think that is so true. I think the most important thing for us as practitioners is we can give information and get these people who are coming to us to start learning to ask the right questions. And we're like kind of almost stimulating their mind and their thought process and their critical thinking process to go, you know what, I never thought of that before. Maybe I need to dig a little bit deeper in it, because just because I say something, or just because you say something, or some other person, we can't really, you know, put these people on a pedestal because they're an expert or they've gone to school for something, or, you know what, or they sound really good. What they say sounds really good and makes a lot of sense. It really lies on us as individuals, me included, as a consumer of supplements and as a patient of someone else, you know, because we all have, you know, you and I both have people who help take care of our bodies. We're educated enough to, you know, help other people. That's what we do for a living. We do that for ourselves as well, but still there are times where we need to seek somebody else and be their patient. So we're not always just like, okay, we know everything, we need to go seek answers from other people. And it wouldn't be very prudent of either one of us just to go and believe that because somebody else, this is the person that we're seeing, that we shouldn't ask questions and look into things ourselves. It's really our responsibility to stay healthy. And with the changing opinions that you see, I guess, over time, which I think, you know, after a while, we start to learn that, you know, all these trends in one day butter's good for you, one day butter's bad for you, one day it's a low carb diet. And you and I both have an understanding, I think, that, you know, there's not, those are trends that people are trying to either make money off of, or they're these, it's got to be this, you know, one hit wonder, one shot, you know, one bullet, magic bullet answer for your wellness. And it's really not that. It's very individualized depending on, you know, what's out of balance with a person, what critical nutrition that they might be missing, what, like you said, what interference might be residing in their body, and, you know, what works for one person and is the thing that they're shouting from the rooftops. This was amazing. This really helped me. May not help for the next guy. Could even be their twin brother or sister with very similar genetics, but still, it's not the answer for the other person. So you and I both know that there's no diet that is the right diet for every single person. It just depends, and it needs to be, I guess, not some fantastical idea that, you know, it's going to be like this really, you know, out there diet, like this is the magic diet, you know. And I know that, you know, when I was younger, I did really great on an Atkins type diet. Now for me now, it's, I know that I need to really, I personally work with Chinese medicine a lot and Ayurveda, so I worry more, where I think more about like what's out of balance with me, how am I feeling in this moment. That means I need to eat more of this type of food. And so I do it, I modify more on a daily basis than going off for like a low carb macro type diet, or a high protein or low fat or high fat or whatever it is. But I think that what I'm saying, I guess, is there's so much confusing information.
That's what makes it difficult for people is because, as you said, the magic bullet, and there is no magic bullet. It's about balance. Each person's body is different. Chemistry is different. And you have to find the things that work right for you. And going into whether it be weight loss or nutrition, the silver bullet, health it's a job. I mean, it's something that you have to work on to maintain. And the other point that you were making, and this isn't about knocking medical doctors. This is a point about any health professional that if they don't have training in something or clinical experience, they're just giving an opinion. So if someone is going to ask, whether it be me as a chiropractor or a medical doctor or a physical therapist, a question that person doesn't have any training, and that person comes off as the authority in it, that's not really fair because you're misleading someone. And I think it's important that people question, they can educate themselves, and then they can decipher what's really best. But when you're with a health professional that is an expert, that has the training, that has the clinical experience, then you're more apt to get the right answer as opposed to just opinions. And the consumer really should be questioning their doctor and knowing what they're trained in. I mean, heck, why not just ask them? Are you trained in nutrition? I don't need your opinion. I want to know if you're trained in this, what your clinical experience is, because I'm looking for solutions. And look, you and I are no different. We're always looking, how can we make our health better? As much as we're practitioners helping people, well, what can we do for ourselves to make ourselves better? I know I've looked over all the years, 20 plus years of practice, I've changed a lot of different things because it's not that silver bullet. All right, now I got to do this. This is working better.
And it might work for a minute for you, but then you decide your body changes a little and then something else needs to happen. Right. So it's a shift.
That's that balance you said. And there are the basic staples, but heck, the environment that we live in with all the toxins and the stress, things get manifested differently. Even though I'm doing the basic things, well, I have this new thing going on. All right, so let's tackle that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I see two things that happen with practitioners, various ones, medical doctors, nutritionists, whatever they may be. And so one thing that happens is doctors or whoever, especially specifically MDs, will say, I'm going to put you, like somebody comes in with diabetes or somebody comes in with cancer and the doctor says, hey, I'm going to put you on this diet. Let's do the paleo diet because it's really good for inflammation, right? They're going to say that, right? Do they have any clinical nutrition experience? Have they studied this? Did they take some continuing education credits, like whatever? Did they actually practice this in their office? Did they actually read a book on it? Did they actually do anything? Or did they just hear it and see it on the internet, no different than any other person has seen an ad pop up from whoever? And is that what they're basing it on? And so this is like really important for people when their doctor tells them, okay, this is the really good diet for diabetes. This is a really good diet for rheumatoid arthritis. This is the diet that you should be doing for cancer. No sugar. You should not have any fruit. You should not have any this, that, or the other. Ask your doctor, are you trained in this? Have you done this with patients before? You need to get those answers. So it's really important to ask that. Then the other side of the coin is people who have studied nutrition. This is what they do. They're nutritionists. They're not a physician. They're a nutritionist. But they don't have an understanding of how everybody's different. So they're doing a one size fits all, basically nutrition plan for every single person who comes through their door. So this would just be like a physical therapist or even a chiropractor, because there are some of them out there, and there are naturopaths who, like me, that do every single thing the same. It's one protocol, fits every single person, or diagnosis specific. So if you have cancer, this is the protocol I'm going to put you on. If you're, let's say for you, if you have scoliosis, this is how I'm going to adjust you every single time. And every person with a scoliotic spine is going to get this specific adjustment. We know as practitioners, you and I know that doesn't work. And so if you are a consumer, patient, whatever you want to call yourself, going into a practitioner of any type, and you know that they're doing one size fits all with every single person, or you're not sure about it, you have the permission to ask, and it's your responsibility to say, okay, so, is this tailored for me? And why did I, how am I getting a different treatment, and what is it based on? How are you making these decisions? Start looking into that stuff. It's your responsibility to dig in. And I encourage people who work with me to ask me, like, why did you make the decision to put me on that type of mushroom complex versus this one? Or out of all the adaptogens we could have chosen for my low energy issues or my hormonal issues or whatever it might be, why did you choose the one you chose? And I'd be happy to explain it, because I think that that's important, because the more educated our clients and patients are, the more compliant they're going to be, the
Absolutely.
more they're going to be into their treatment and be really excited about it. It's not going to be so much of a, oh, I got to take this handful of pills. Oh, I can't eat this. Oh, I have to eat that. I have to go exercise. It's going to be, yay, I get to do this because now I'm empowered. So I
Right.
think that is like one of the most important things.
That's a great point, because when people understand the process, why they're doing this, they're definitely more apt to follow through, especially when they have a responsibility level. If there's no responsibility level, or they don't understand, what the protocol that we're putting them through, they get confused, and then they don't want to do it. So it is important, and I know you and I have spoken many times on this about the approach that we take. Not one size fits all. You tailor make a program for someone for what their specific needs are, and I think people like that so much better, because I think the majority of people know we are individuals and everyone is different.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then they get results faster, because basically we're really focusing and laser focusing into, like, okay, so how do we deal with the issue that's really right at the top of the iceberg here, and at the same time, how are we going to deal with some of the stuff that's lying under the surface that they can't even see or notice, like that's going to do the long-term stuff, so we
Right.
can deal with multiple levels instead of just covering up the symptom or just dealing with the long-term things, so we can actually work with the person and get what they need. And so that really kind of leads into, a lot of times we do have to use supplements in that type of care. So if we were in this like perfect world where there were no toxic stuff in the environment, we all dealt with our emotional stuff, without hanging on to any of it ever, which, we're just human.
Yeah.
And, if there was not problems with our food supply that have come on over the last 100 years, if there were not, viruses that were genetically modified and weaponized and all these things that we have a lot of issues that we're dealing with. And so, because of this, we're going to need a little bit of extra help. So we're going to need some, body work type care. So whether it's chiropractic or acupuncture or medical massage or energy work or whatever it might be, we can also do, certain types of focused exercise to work on certain problem areas, I guess, if you want to put it that way. I know that on your YouTube channel and on your Facebook channel, you talk a lot about different exercises people can do, and you're very physically active. You do long-term or distance bike riding, right?
Yeah.
Did you lose me? Okay.
Yeah, no,
I think we
no,
might
I
have a
will.
little bit
I
of a
will.
lag. And so there's a lot of things that we can do that way. But then when it comes to the nutritional thing, it'd be really great if we could just grow all of our food in the garden and whatever and harvest it and bring it in and eat it, and we would be just perfect. But our food has become so deteriorated in the quality, and it's so contaminated with what has been added to it and what it's inundated with, whether it's purposely done or because it's picking up stuff from our very toxic environment. And this isn't to be like an alarmist or anything. It's just the way it is.
No,
I
fact.
seriously, I mean, I used to kind of freak out about it and be like, oh my gosh, we're so doomed. But the thing is like, there are ways to detoxify our bodies if we work on it on a daily basis, and just kind of make it part of our lifestyle. Removing interference, like you said, through things like chiropractic adjustments. There's mud packing that is something, it's called cation packs. Those can help. Acupuncture can help. There's all sorts of ways you can do that. And so do you want to talk a second about interference and how it can sedate organs and things like that and stop organs from actually getting the nutrition that they need or the electrical impulse? Do you want to just kind of share about that for a second?
Well, I've seen it with patients, again, as a structural chiropractor. a person's going along, and then all of a sudden they just have some nagging thing that just doesn't go away. So if we're looking at interference fields, again, the way the body's energy is set up with meridians and the nervous system, and doing mud packing on those injury sites, and then you get the meridian back on, or let's just call it the energy back on, and then all of a sudden, that tough thing that for chiropractic, because it wasn't a chiropractic issue, now all of a sudden they start doing better. And it's the same thing with nutrition. You start add supplementation in, get people drinking water or exercise, and all of a sudden, bam, they're doing better. But clearing interference fields, from what we've learned from Premier and Dr. Marshall, it's vital, because getting the body is all energy, and get those fields on and remove those interference fields. And I've seen great results with it.
So there are times where people could be doing a lot of the right things, but with the interference field in place, it's almost like, I kind of liken it to a beaver dam being on a river. Like if there's all this, or, just garbage, people are throwing in their junk into the river, and it's finally slowing down the flow of the stream where the water can't, make it through. And then you're creating this bog, almost like the backwater is like this bog. And then, it's just sludgy and kind of gross, and fish aren't going to survive in that. And, it's going to be mucky. And then downstream, it's just going to dry up. So like anything downstream is not going to get any water. So once you go in and you pick out all those pop cans and the plastic and the weeds and all the logs that have fallen in that stream there, and you clear that out of the way and restore the flow again, then that, organ, whether it's your heart or your kidney or your reproductive organs or your brain or whatever it is, now all of a sudden it's almost like you turn the lights back on, and it can.
That's a great analogy. That's a great analogy.
That's my favorite one. People really always talk about the beaver dam, and they're like, they get that because it makes sense. They understand what it's like when a bunch of shit's fallen in the way of a river and no water can get through. But you talk meridians, and people sometimes they shut down. And so when I thought about
what the heck's a meridian? So
yeah, exactly. It's a river, basically. A meridian's a river, it's like, or a nerve, it's kind of like a river too, or an electrical cord. So talking about supplements today, now that we kind of understand some of the backstory about, like why do we even need to take them and whatever, because you'll see things on the internet, and if you watch the news, which I don't know that you and I do, I certainly don't watch it, but it's you'll see things or in the newspaper or wherever that say, oh, supplements are dangerous, they can be really toxic for people. Well, we're basing that on the fact that most of the supplements that are produced in this country, and we're not even talking about ones that are maybe even made in some crazy third world countries where there's no kind of even FDA overseeing, which it doesn't even really oversee that, but like even the pretense of that, which that stuff does come into our country. But we're talking about the supplements that are actually made here in the United States. And we know that they are. We're still talking about the fact that they can still have a lot of problems with them. They can still not really be what's on the label. And they can have so many additives, and they can be synthetic, and they can have all these excipients and things that basically will help the manufacturing process be cheaper for the person that's making them, and easier on their machinery and whatever. And then sometimes the stuff that they could even be an up and up company, but that's the raw materials that they're getting in. They're not doing enough testing on it every time, and they're just trusting their supplier. It's saying like, we've always gotten good stuff from them, so we can just trust them. And little do they know that it's not even, what they got. And I can tell a story real quick about Premier Research Labs that happened one time in the last year or so. They got a stock of raw turmeric powder in, and they tested it like they do with every single lot of raw material that comes into their place. And they found out that it was dyed corn flour. So looked like turmeric and everything. And somebody got the, thing like, hey, let's, of course they always check it anyway, but they were kind of suspect of it because either there was something just a little bit different looking with it or smelling, obviously, probably because turmeric does have a pretty strong smell. So anyway, finding that out, then they were like, this is a good thing. But so many companies don't even test because it's expensive. It's more manpower, it's more equipment, more lab equipment. Now you could pay a third-party lab to test it and trust that they're not going to screw it up, because that happens a lot too. Or you have to have that all in-house, and it's not cheap for these companies to do it. So 99% of them are not going to do it. So you really have to know
That's what I love about Premier, because everything is tested. I mean, for the many
multiple
years,
times,
right,
multiple levels.
for the years that you and I have been using Premier, how many times that there may be one ingredient or a product they just don't sell anymore because it doesn't test well, because they understand the integrity of how important food is and how important supplements to increase someone's health. So why would I want to put out an over product? I mean, their integrity is so high. We're not going to put out an over product because we know this product is designed to help someone's health. And I mean, you should share Dr. Marco's story on how Premier started. So from that perspective, and I'll let you tell that story. I mean, that's what I love about this company and his story. I was like, you know what? This confirms why I love Premier, is because this is a guy who dedicated that I am going to get good supplements because of what happened with his health, taking certain supplement.
So really briefly, I mean, I'm not like super great on telling his story verbatim, and I, I don't want to massacre it, but basically Dr. Marshall got a pretty rare disease. And there were maybe 20 people or something, I think, who had it. And I don't even remember exactly what it was, but it was wasn't it the, I think it was something that you get from dust or something like, or it can happen from dust, but it's rare. And all of the people that had this disease should have died from it. And it was him, and I think, was it 3 other people, or was he the only one who survived?
I believe he was the only one that survived.
So, you know, out of this really rare disease where there was basically no, you know, good outcome expected from any of these people, he healed himself through supplements, through nutrition. He was not even a nutritional expert at that time. He was what was his, he had a PhD in something else. He was like more of a mechanical sciences
Right.
person, wasn't he? And I feel bad because this is just something that it's so far in my history that I don't even remember like the whole story exactly. But you know, it really converted him. And then he saw like how many, because of him using this, and he did get better, but he also took a supplement that was contaminated, which then took him back to being really, really sick again. And he almost died from that. So the combination of, you know, getting sick from something rare and then thinking he's going to get the supplement that's going to help him and then getting sick again. So the guy basically has this like death notice hanging over his head, and he's cheated death more or less. But then it really turned on his passion for, this is a big deal. There are so many contaminated supplements. The FDA does not, you know, watchdog this stuff. They say like, you know, yeah, we can you know, put a label on this and you can legally sell it, but there's nothing that's really approved, or you know, they don't go in and check up on you to make sure that that's what you're really putting in there. So, you know, or to test it, you know, does it have E. coli contamination? Does it have mycotoxins? Which mycotoxins in PRL is huge, because they're probably one of the few companies that test to the extent that they do for mycotoxins. And mycotoxins is just, you know, it's in our food all over the place. So if you have rice or oatmeal or anything, flour in your cupboard right now, you know, the chances that it has mycotoxin contamination in it is, you know, pretty significant. So here we are taking these supplements, and we're talking about these powdered, dried supplements. The chances that it's going to have these mycotoxins, and I can do a post and talk about mycotoxins later for people who are going, wait, what are mycotoxins? Because I know a lot of people are like, I've never even heard of that. But, you know, just think about fungus and fungal infections. And these things are so tiny, and they just take hold of our body, and they can cause all sorts of problems, inflammation, you know, digestive issues, brain and cognitive issues, you know, autoimmune diseases, reproduction issues. I mean, it's endless. I mean, it's just like a lot of, you know, heavy metals and things like that. They can cause as many problems as those things. And so many people aren't even aware that they are getting a daily dose of it when they're taking their supplements.
And again,
So it's just
the talk that we're having today is vital to let people know that I believe it's 97.5% of the supplements out on the market have binders and fillers, leaving 2.5% that don't. But then you take Premier, and I'm not sure, there may be others that have the same type of integrity in the sense that how they test all their materials to know, hey, is there an issue with this? And if there is an issue, we're not using it. and because they understand how important these things are to our health. And the other thing for some people, and I know it's tough sometimes for the consumer, well, Premier and good quality supplements, it's going to be a little more pricey, but not crazy. And they could think, well, let's say I'm taking vitamin C, and of course Premier's is X amount, but I can go to CVS and get it for $2. Why don't I just do that? And that's unfortunately a person not understanding. And I don't want to say this ever because financially for some people it's tough. But if you're doing it for the reason of
damaging your health,
right? That's the point. It's damaging to your health. You got to get a good quality.
I would rather see somebody not take the supplement and attempt to get as much as they can through food than take a cheap supplement from CVS or the health food store or whatever. And, a lot of them are really inexpensive, low cost, cheap. It's like the dollar amount is cheap there. But then there are ones too that people will show me and they'll say, I'm taking really high quality supplements. And I'll say, let me see the label because, we know that that's that 2%. That's exactly more than likely what you're telling me you're taking, especially when you're telling me you still feel like garbage and you're not getting results. My first guess is just going to be, that what you're taking, as soon as I look at the label, and there it is. And I'm like, ascorbic acid, that's not vitamin C. That's a synthetic fraction. It's a derivative. And that's not going to help you. Your body doesn't know what to do with that, except for to go, oh my God, this is like part of, what I needed here. It's like, and I'll see if I can make a quick analogy, but if somebody handed you a dollar bill, but it was only half of one, I'm making this up as I go, by the way. I'm just like the queen of metaphors. But if I give you a dollar bill right now or a $10 bill and you need to go buy something, but I only gave you half of it, it's not going to work at the store.
Right.
So you're either going to have to take another $10 bill and tear that one in half to make it fit, or else you're going to have to get a $10 bill from somewhere else. But that half of a piece that I gave you isn't going to buy any money because you have to have 2/3 of a dollar bill, or it's more than half that you have to have for it to work at the bank. You can turn it into the bank and they'll give you one. But I mean, everybody kind of knows that. It's the same way with our supplements. If you take a fraction of something that's a critical nutrient for your body's going to be like, what the hell did you just give me? This is like a total ripoff. Well, you know what? Thanks for nothing, but I'm going to see what I can do to make this work. So to go into your cells and pull out like some good stuff to fit that together, it's almost like putting a key in a lock. You got to make that whole thing, like all those little tumblers fall in order to open that door. So all those pieces have to be there. And if they're not, it's just not going to work. It'd be like, if you had a key and one of the notches was torn out of there, that's not going to open the lock. So you'd have to rig it to make it happen.
Exactly.
So in the long run, and it could be 10 years later, you're actually going to be making yourself sicker. It may not be in a week. It may not be the first time. And people think, well, I can get away with that for a while. But that's not the attitude we should have. We should have the attitude of, I want to have amazing health and I want to start right now and do everything I can.
That's exactly right.
Even if it means taking half the supplements.
I'll share a quick story just on that. So when I was in my mid-20s, someone introduced taking supplements. And I had the mindset of, well, some with $10 and I can get it for $1.50. So I was taking these supplements for a little while and I started not feeling good. Right. We've all probably experienced this. And I started not feeling good. And I did. I was on it here. And I'm like, you know what? I felt better when I wasn't on these. So I'm going to stop taking them. And then later on, when I went to chiropractic school, I was interested in supplements and a certain brand and started taking them, and then I stopped. And then when I got out in practice, I don't want to mention the company, but it was the reason I started using them again, getting back on supplements, because I learned a little bit more how important they are. And I'm like, well, I think I want to get a better quality, so I'm going to pay a little bit more. So in a chiropractic journal, this certain supplement, this company kept coming up. I'm like, it's got to be good. It's in this journal. So I started taking them.
Yes.
And I didn't have any ill effects, thankfully. And then I ran into someone who, when we got turned on to Premier, actually, I should say that just before that, turned us on to electrodermal screening. And she mentioned the company that we use, and she's like, you shouldn't use those. They have binders and fillers. I'm like, what the heck's a binder and a filler? And then when she explained it, and then she said, "This is the company we're using, and here's why," which it turned out to Premier. And I'm like, I didn't even know that they did that. But going back to when I was in my mid-20s, I wasn't feeling good. So if there's a lot of other people out there that are taking supplements that have these binders and fillers, they're poor quality, they're inexpensive, and you're not feeling well with them, and then you stop, that's the reason why.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, it's just something that no one really talks about. It's very, very uncommon. Every once in a while, you'll run across an article if you're really looking for it. But most of the time, people don't. They're not aware of it. I know for me in my practice, I was really, really resistant to using a more costly supplement with people because I felt like, well, if I can get turmeric for, $5.99, why is somebody going to want to spend $17.99 for a bottle? And I just felt like people would be resistant to it. But the thing is that what does Dr. Marshall say? When you only need a thimbleful of nutrition or something. I can't remember what his quote is. You need such a tiny, tiny amount
you only need
of quality.
You only need a thimbleful
right.
of certain supplements. Or if you're not taking the right thing, you need some of these poor ones, you need a wheelbarrow full.
Yes, exactly. Well, and like, I said earlier, you may not even know, like with the turmeric that was really dyed corn flour, or, there was a Consumer Reports thing done years ago, probably like at least 5 years ago, if not longer, where they went to CVS, Target, Walmart, GNC, all those places, and they took like ginkgo biloba. I don't even remember this. They took several really commonly used supplements. I mean, ginkgo is one that a lot of people use. I think echinacea and some other things. And then they actually did GCMS testing and a couple other tests, like some things on them. And they determined that it was a high percentage. It was like 70 to 90% of the supplements that were labeled, hey, this is 100% ginkgo biloba herb, or this is 100% green tea extract or whatever. Not only was a lot of times it was like they looked at the DNA of it and was like, hey, this is actually a house plant. Like it's a philodendron that's ground up in here, or it's grass, or it's dirt, or whatever it was. Or not only that, there were times where actually it had no DNA in it whatsoever. So that means that it was just like coal tar or synthetic. Who even knows what it was? And that's freaking scary because, here we are spending all this money, and some of these supplements were not cheap. They were, premium brands and everything like that, where you actually think, well, I went to the health food store, or, my doctor told me this was a good brand, or my naturopath or my chiropractor told me this was a good brand, just because they heard that or whatever, that's what they were told, with, again, not having the actual clinical experience of using it with people or using it with themselves and understanding like what the company actually does for their own processes, how many levels of testing that they do. Do they test every single batch, or do they just randomly test? Like, once in a blue moon, they may just random be like, let's pull a bottle off the line and we'll run that through a little bit of GCMS testing, call it a day, instead of doing like, 10 levels of testing. And that's part of the reason that supplements that are quality cost more money.
Right.
For the people who are actually using integrity with their manufacturing processes, because it costs money to do all of that testing. And then when you're talking about a company who has the amount of integrity where when they find out that the stuff that they got is not testing the right way it should, they throw it away. So not only did they can't sell it, and they just did all that testing and they spent all that money and they paid all their people to do it, now they have to throw it out and they're not going to make any money on it. So, and then, they run the risk of, I know that I had gotten upset the first time that they ever stopped producing magnesium, because they couldn't get a good source for it because they got a bad batch of magnesium. And recently there's been a few things that aloe juice we couldn't get for a year, about 6 months ago. They've had a hard time with aloe because it's so hard to get a good, a good clean. So, that's the thing is, they are kind of taking the risk for us when they're buying the stuff and manufacturing it and doing all this testing. And a lot of these companies would rather put the blinders on and be like, well, we're just going to call it a day. And I'm just going to like make the stuff and sell it, because I cannot afford to throw it out and to put it in, to put it into an incinerator.
And the interesting
So there was, go ahead.
The interesting thing is, to make it simple for people, what I share with my patients, and I know you do the same, is just read labels. If there's a bunch of things in there, you know, then it has binders and fillers. If it's a tablet, it's going to be because something's got to hold that tablet together. And if you can find certain companies, make it easy. Premier Research, they're one of the good quality companies. There's a Dr. Schultz who has he sells good products as well. But for me, I just said, I want to cut all the junk out. I don't want to have to search. We've been investigated Premier. You and I talking about Premier, we don't gain anything from it, but it's a good quality supplement. You don't have to go and search, say, look, I know this company is very good for the integrity, how well they test for things. If things don't test properly, they don't use it or they get rid of that back. So just take out all the legwork. Just go with a company that you know is going to give you what
makes it easy. It makes it a lot easier, definitely. And then another point about them too is that, you know, they need to produce supplements that will work with quantum reflex analysis. And if they are sending their practitioners who learn QRA, quantum reflex analysis, it's a type of muscle testing. So if we are using supplements that are not pure, that are not cell resonant, that's another layer to Premier Research Labs that a lot of companies don't have, even ones that are organic and don't have excipients. But if they don't have that resonant quality with the cells of the body and with the organs of the body, basically, you know, that's going to be a problem because we're not going to be able to use them with quantum reflex analysis. So they're not going to work in our protocols and we're not going to have success. And so that company is built on the ability to have successes with their supplements. So if they're passing on kind of second quality stuff, it's not going to work for them. And you're froze up. So hopefully you come back in a second. I don't know if you can still hear me or not. I'm going to keep going. So while I'm waiting for you to come back or unfreeze, I don't know if everybody's seeing you unfrozen or not. I'm just going to assume you're fine. But I'm going to just read through a couple of the points that I put up the other day. And so one of the things that we can look at when we're looking at a quality supplement is the difference between practitioner only and regular supplement. So as we've been talking about practitioner only, oh shoot, he did totally go. I'm just going to go ahead and keep going with this. Sorry, Dr. Kelly will be back with us next week to answer. I'm just going to call it good because we made 45 minutes of it work. So I'm going to be happy about that. But so the difference between practitioner only and regular supplements are with practitioner only supplements, they're made for the practitioner and the company knows that we need them to work. So they're not just trying to sell like a one-off thing and hook you into like, you know, when you see those things online, oh, this is a cleanse and you can, you know, it works and it's so great and it looks really, really amazing. It looks like this, you know, magic bullet cure. It's got all these people testimonials that are probably fake. And then it's like a subscription thing that you have to get hooked into, or it looks like it's just a buy one time. And then pretty soon, you guys have probably all done this before, you're getting billed every single month for, you know, bottles and bottles and bottles of this stuff. And I got roped into that. There was a colon cleanse stuff I bought probably 15 years ago. And I ended up getting like 8 bottles of it or something and paying like hundreds and hundreds of dollars and couldn't return it. And it was just impossible. And it was garbage, basically. It didn't work. If anything, it made me feel not well. So the practitioner only supplements, and there's several different companies that do that. Oh, he's back. Let's pull him back on here. You're back. I just was talking about the difference between practitioner only and the, you know, just regular old stuff, and how practitioner only, the company really wants, they need to know that it's going to work for us. Whereas other companies, it's just like, they don't care if they retain you or not. They're more interested in just getting us some sales or whatever. And practitioner only companies, we know they're going to be there for the long haul because they're there supporting us as practitioners. They're there doing education with us to tell us like, this is how this is meant to be used. These are the different ways you can use it. So that's the better way to go usually. Although that doesn't mean everything, because there are practitioner only companies that do use binders and fillers and excipients and synthetics in their products. So just because it's practitioner only does not mean that that's what you go for. So that's one thing that I think people should, you know, question. Another thing that I think is important is the difference between. Go ahead.
I agree with that 100%.
Okay, good. Yes, of course you do. Because You and I are right on line with that for sure.
Yeah.
Another one that's really important is knowing that it's live source versus pharmaceutical grade. And so many times people say, well, this is pharmaceutical grade. I only take pharmaceutical grade. But do you guys understand what pharmaceutical grade is? I mean, it means pharmacy. You know, it's like that is basically it's synthetics. I mean, if you don't want to take synthetic drugs like Xanax and Zantac and whatever. And I'm not knocking anybody who does that, but I used to take those drugs and they severely damaged my body. If you want to get away from that stuff, you don't want to take pharmaceutical grade supplements because you're just replacing one with the other. And they're probably going to be overpriced as well. So,
Well,
it's not even a, hey, you're going to.
well, what you're describing, when you think this through, our bodies, the cells thrive on live food, that energy. So if you're taking something that's synthetic, that's dead, yeah, the cells are gonna pull in, say if it's vitamin C, the body's gonna pull that in because it needs it. But then over time, what's gonna happen to the
Mhm.
cell? The cell's going to die. When your
Yeah.
cells die, it's gonna create an array of health problems. So it just, and again, people have that, if it's pharmaceutical, it's gotta be good, but not knowing that if
Yeah.
it's synthetic, what's gonna happen, what the potential damage is going to be.
Well, it's like a McDonald's hamburger. I mean, how much of that is synthetic? It's got flavorings and colorings and all. They say 100% pure beef, but we know that that's not really the case. And so if you live, everybody I think knows about what was that Fast Food Nation or Super Size Me or whatever.
Yeah,
A lot of
yeah.
people have watched that movie or read the book and saw how sick he got when he was eating 3 meals at McDonald's a day. And I think he had to stop because he thought he was going to be dead before they even finished the movie. So we cannot survive on synthetic foods or synthetic supplements. It's not how our body was made. We're made to eat fruits and vegetables, and if you're a meat eater, meat and dairy that's actually like was a living thing. So it's important for our supplements to be that way too. The next
Absolutely.
one is cell resonant, and that's something that PRL, Premier Research Labs, and Dr. Marshall really felt that was important to get the energetic aspect in there. And so, just because you have beets, I use their powdered beets every day. I just had a glass of it before I came on. And so just because you have powdered beets, right? And they say they're organic and they say they're non-GMO and they don't have any fillers in them, do we know that they're truly cell resonant? Have they been tested to be cell resonant? So that's a whole nother level of testing. It just takes you up. Like, so you could be here with your organic beets, even the ones that you grew outside, or whatever, but are they cell resonant where they're actually up here? They're that
Yeah.
highest level that you can actually get, which is so hard to find and maintain nowadays because of, I mean, here I am. I just got dirt delivered today. I'm really excited. I'm going to go out, and start my garden and get my plants in here on the new moon. But, I've got neighbors that spray their lawns and, heavy metals, the planes spraying their stupid crap from up above the, what do you call those, chemtrails? I mean, we're
Yep, yep.
inundated with stuff. We just can't get away with it. Then that gets on our food. And so now we have this non-pristine stuff that knocks down the resonance of that food, where it's not going to vibrate quite the same as our cell of whatever we're trying to target. Like beets work really great with the gallbladder and the bile, and they build the blood and nitric oxide. They do all these great things. But if you have a lesser quality beet powder for whatever reason, whether it's not real beet powder or it is real beet powder, but it's somehow not cell resonant, you're going to be missing out. So why not just get the best for yourself? It's just so many levels. People don't even know to ask these questions. I didn't know this,
Well,
um,
that's what comes in
and
the
then
form of education, getting educated on these
exactly.
things like this. And then once you get informed, it just makes, to me and you, and it just makes more sense that if I'm trying to elevate my health or maintain good health, these are the things that we need to do.
Absolutely. And how are you doing on time too? Because I know
I'm
are you
good.
okay?
Yeah,
Oh,
I am.
okay, good. So I'll just keep going through these. And then, cell resonant ingredients and organ specific formulas. So like, that is one thing that Premier Research Lab really, stands on, is that, not only are the ingredients cell resonant, like we just talked about, but then they're organ specific and they're targeted. So they do have some targeted formulas and some that aren't, but we're going to want to use the right things that are synergistic with each other and that are the top things that are really going to work for that, organ or system of organs or whatever. So, if we're working on the liver and the gallbladder, or if we're working on the digestive system, we want to know that that nutrition is going to be able to get right to that organ and get in there and get, give it the energy it needs to function at its optimal power, and then be able to help remove those interference fields and keep them clear. Like, Billy Venn and Gallbladder ND are like huge for getting the gallbladder to turn back on. Yeah. So even if your bladder's been removed, like Dr. Kelly and I can't put that gallbladder back in. Nobody can make that thing grow back. I mean, it's gone now. Damage is done, whatever. And, sometimes people actually have a gangrenous gallbladder and there is no choice but to take it out. So I'm not shaming anybody who had it out. But, the thing is that you still have the meridian and you still have the energetic system there. That never leaves. Even if you have a hysterectomy, you still have all those parts of your kidney meridian. That stuff, that energy is still going to flow there. But if you have the interference because the nutrition's not there, or there's a scar or whatever that needs to be addressed, you need to make sure that you're getting that targeted cell resonant and organ specific nutrition. So just going and getting any random thing that is a kidney formula or a gallbladder formula or something you read somewhere or something someone told you, it may not be the right thing. So that's just something, that's another level, of something to think about too, and to ask your person who's helping you with your supplements. You need to ask about it. Is this targeted to my gallbladder meridian? And if they don't know, there's a red flag to go find somebody who does. There's a million practitioners out there,
yep, exactly.
And not every practitioner is a specialist in nutrition. It's okay, because there are people who are just so good at, doing chiropractic adjustments and they don't want to do the nutrition aspect. And so they want to refer that to somebody else. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just not what they love doing. It's all right. Doesn't mean they're a bad chiropractor. It just means that they're not doing nutrition. That's it.
Colleagues of mine that I'm very friendly with, they don't do weight loss. So when they get asked weight loss or nutritional questions, they tell them that's not what I do. I mean, I know someone that can. I can recommend someone, or ask someone, but we just can't assume. But definitely a consumer or one of your patients, they should be asking us, and we should be honest about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should be honest about it, because if it's not something we should do, we should say, I don't do that, but I do know somebody who does, or whatever, if we don't know somebody who does. But a lot of times we do know somebody who does, and we know somebody who's really good at it. And then, I think that is a kind of benchmark of a really good practitioner, is somebody who's not afraid to refer out for the things that either it's not working, because there's, whatever between, there's no compliance, or it's just not clicking or whatever, or they're at a loss, or it's just not something that they do. That's not what they're a specialist in. And then they don't have any fear in saying, hey, you know what? I don't know everything, because we don't. No one does. I don't know everything either.
Right. And there's no shame in it.
No, that's why there's so many people, because we all are good at something.
Exactly.
So another thing is that we need to talk about is the lack of testing and accountability of a lot of these companies. And it's funny, because when I was just going through some stuff about an hour ago on my phone, really old photographs and screenshots that I had taken, I had an old screenshot of a webinar that I had access to through Premier Research Labs, and it was about and it wasn't that old, it was maybe a year or so ago, but it was about how many companies actually are not accountable for their supplements. And it was like what you were talking about, the 90-some% that, has binders and fillers and whatever. But, the lack of testing that actually really goes on in that world. It's just like, how many times do we hear on the news, if we watch the news, but, or Facebook, people talking about it. Oh, this many people died of E. coli from, lettuce or something like that. It's the same sort of idea. Things get contaminated. Things get, it's not even like they're purposely putting this in their supplements, like stearic acid or magnesium stearate or something like that as a capsule releaser or a flow agent. Those are people actually, hey, I want to be cheap. I want it to be easy on my machines. I want to have, a product that doesn't cost me as much money. I want my, my bottom line to be lower so that I can make more money. So I'm going to put these additives in there. It's not even that all the time. Sometimes it's just that there's contamination and they don't even know it's happening because they're not doing the testing. Like I said, they have their blinders on. So you really have to be responsible to your body and your family's body and know, hey, look, I'm going to know that this company, beyond a shadow of a doubt, is doing absolutely all the testing that they can. And there's not going to be those stupid excuses of, well, we didn't know it had contamination, because if you're making something, you should know that it doesn't. If you're putting a label on something, you should know that. Like
Right.
it was Gwyneth Paltrow, and I don't care about throwing her under the bus, whatever. She makes enough money and stuff, but she is like, oh, my products are so great and whatever. And then another one too was somebody else famous, because everybody famous is always making products and claiming that they're organic. And it was the person who did the Honest, I can't remember her name right now, Jennifer or something, I think. She's another actress, but the Honest Company, which is a lot of baby and kid products, and they were like, oh yeah, it's all organic, it's all natural, we don't have any of these additives in there. But then of course, a consumer agency went in and looked at their laundry soap, and they were like, bullshit, this is in your product. And they were like, oh, well, we didn't know. Why did you not know? You're going out and putting your name on this, and you're selling it, and you're making tons of money. People are trusting you. And so we should really know, just not trust, like, because it has like a famous face attached to it, or it has a, shiny brand, or it's in all the expensive, section of the health food store or whatever. We shouldn't just trust that. We should actually know more about the company.
Exactly.
And if we can't find the information, then we should ask somebody about it.
Well, it goes
super
back
important.
To
so many people just have that trust factor.
Right. Well, and it goes back to what we were talking earlier in the show. With medical doctors, people just assume that they have the training, or chiropractors have the training. You just assume that. So we see a celebrity, they must know, because they wouldn't say that. But again, it's about getting data, getting information. And if you know what we're talking about, know what the listeners got today is, all right, what do I need to do? I need to question authority. I need to read labels. And just because if they say it's pharmaceutical, that doesn't mean it's a good product. And when you read labels, if it doesn't have a list of things on it, hey, this is a good product. And heck, we just cut down a lot of the work with just get Premier, and you don't have to worry about all these other little things, because you get a trusted company and good quality.
Absolutely. And that, I think, when a practitioner gets to know one or two product lines, companies, whatever, and they develop like this understanding, connection with the company, they're getting, the inside information basically on those products, like to a pretty large degree. So they've worked with it a long time. They see how it works in clinical practice. They see how it works for themselves. They're really experiencing it. They feel like, at that point, you and I, it's like you feel like you don't really need to go outside that, because then there's no harm in trying another company at some point, but then you have to go through all of that work to see. And most of the time, as practitioners and as consumers, we're going to be disappointed in what we find, because like you had said earlier, what are those statistics? What are those numbers? We're talking like 90 some percent of it at some point has got a major black mark on it, whether it's because it has excipients, because it has contaminants, because it's not the right form of the plant. So, you've got, I'm teaching a botanical class right now. So, we're talking a lot about genus, species, and family. So like if you're basically looking at like using a specific kind of lavender and you're expecting it to do this thing, and you're using another genus and species, not the one that you want. It doesn't really happen with lavender that much, but I'm just, saying, so if there's a specific type of, whatever. So one of them is ginseng. Ginsengs are not all made the same. There's Korean ginseng, there's American ginseng, and I don't remember like all the details on them, but ginseng's not a product that I use very often, but it's very important to use the right one. It's like cannabis, and I'm not a cannabis user or really even, but I don't have problems with people who use it that it works for. But there's cannabis sativa and cannabis indica, and the people who use it know there is a huge difference in those two types, those two botanical names. They're not interchangeable. So if you want to relax, you're not going to want to take the wrong type. Right. So it's super important too that you know that this company is using the specific type that they are supposed to be putting in there, and not just getting some like, oh, we're just going to put parsley in there and it's just this random type, and that's not even the right kind. So that's what we're saying basically. You need to find a practitioner who knows their product line, who knows their company, and that is open to you asking the questions and can give you those answers about, this is how I know that this quality level is there. And you can ask, like, are there excipients in there? Are there fillers? Are there binders? Are there synthetics? Are there, things that shouldn't not, that are not necessary, that are not conducive to our health? Because none of those things, binders, fillers, dyes, they're not healthy for us. We don't need them. Our body doesn't require that stuff. So why take it in a supplement?
Exactly. And there's a criteria, just what you just spoke on, having that criteria. It just makes a person, it's so much easier when you go into, say, a health store or a practitioner. And before you even get in, do they test it, the cell resonance of it? Do these supplements, do they have binders and fillers? And if they say, I don't know, because I've done this just for fun, if I'm at a seminar or I'm at a convention and there's different vendors there and someone said, oh, you should try XYZ. And the first question I ask them is, are there any binders and fillers? 9 out of 10 times, and a lot of times 10 out of 10 times, they look at you like, what are you talking about? And then you just turn around. Well, here's what binders and fillers are. Read the labels, and they're telling me, well, this is a great product, and here's why. And once you ask them, binders and fillers, they don't know. All right, let me just see the ingredients, and then you ram them off. These are the binders and fillers. I don't take a product like that because they're toxic to the body. And if you're someone who's not well, and you're taking something that potentially can make you worse, or take a person who's relatively healthy, or you and I that are healthy, why do I want to take something that just doesn't work? So that criteria is very simple. Any binders and fillers, let me look at the label. Just turn the bottle around.
Yep.
And you'll know.
Yep. Exactly. It's that other ingredients at the bottom, that if there's a whole bunch of stuff there or really anything at all, then that's where you go, no. There's a few exceptions to that. Like, sometimes it'll say the capsule will be listed there. It'll say, it shouldn't be a gelatin capsule, but if it says there's a capsule made from whatever, then usually, what is it? It'll say like a cellulose capsule or something, which just means it's made from plant material. So you don't want to use a gelatin capsule, though. We can go into that another time. But basically, if it says a whole bunch of stuff like, silica, which is sand, and microcrystalline cellulose, and like all these things you can't pronounce, like put it down or throw it in the trash, walk away from it. You don't want it. And then beyond that, learning to actually know, like when you see vitamin B, vitamin C, vitamin D, whatever, which ones are the names that are the synthetic versions, which ones are the names that are the ones that actually come from plants or animals or whatever, because that's important too. And then, you want to know that when you're using something that's animal derived, that animal was, number one, treated really well, because you don't want to have an animal that was abused in a factory farming type condition where it's got all these negative emotional hormones running through their body, because they do have that problem when they're never let to go outside and pushed around and treated poorly and whatever. I mean, just imagine how you would feel as a person if you were in those conditions. That vibration goes into what their body, and then it translates into the supplement that is made from their body. And so you definitely don't want that to happen. You also don't want animals that are fed in proper diets, like with, feed that's full of all sorts of bad things, and given antibiotics and all these things too. So you want to make sure that when either you're reading the label or you're getting the information from your practitioner that you're working with, that no, they are in fact not contaminated with any of those factors, because it's not going to be good for you either energetically or physiologically. It's going to be, not adding to your health. And then the last thing I did want to talk about Premier Research Labs is a lot of people they don't know, they're not aware. So Premier Research Labs, being a practitioner only company, you have to qualify to be able to sell it. So you have to, show your license or your certifications or whatever, and they decide whether or not that you're qualified, and then you receive training and you can sell their products. So they do not allow their products to be sold to third-party vendors, meaning you cannot sell. Dr. Kelly and I cannot put, anybody can sell on Amazon. It's a fact. But Dr. Kelly and I cannot put our supplements up on Amazon, because if I could make $1 million just throwing my PRLs. I could order like pallets of it and have it shipped right to Amazon, and they could package it up and ship it out all over the world. I wouldn't even have to do any work. I wouldn't have to educate anybody, which I'd be bored if I couldn't do that. But you know what I mean? It's like we could just be millionaires shipping our stuff off to Amazon because we have accounts with PRL. Well, PRL doesn't allow that because because they're a practitioner only company and they have integrity, they want you to talk to us. So I actually had one of my clients from Arizona today send me a message right before we got on, and she had just received some turmeric powder, and she said, I've been taking it for this many days and I'm feeling this great with it, but I'm kind of wondering, should I up my dose because it doesn't really say on the bottle? And I said, that's because they want you to ask me, and they want us to have a chat and decide what's best for you. And so that's the thing, is they don't want us selling it on Amazon or eBay or Ali or whatever all those third-party companies are, where we can just make a mint just selling in mass quantities, because they want us to actually work with you. And so the other thing is there's a lot of companies that just will sell on a website and they advertise free shipping and cheaper prices. And some of those places are actually physicians, as far as chiropractic physicians, they're naturopathic physicians, whatever. And they just happen to have like a supplement company, sort of like a health food store that's attached to their practice. And then they've just grown it with lots and lots of different supplements that they sell, because they have a practitioner only accounts with all these different companies. So they figure, why not make a lot of money, which, you know what, to each his own. But the problem with that is that every time they buy these pallets, which they get more, discount, that's why they can offer at a cheaper price. Now you're suddenly getting your stuff from these big places that order like, $10,000 worth of product at once, and it might sit in the office for a really long time. So in every one of these sites, I've seen stuff that PRL has not made for like 5 or 7 years. So that means it's at least 5 or 7 years old, because it hasn't even been manufactured for that long. So like Chia Pro, I don't know if you remember that one, the Chia Von Brush, which was an amazing product, but they can't get the raw materials for it anymore. So they had to stop making. And I was really sad because I love that stuff. But there are websites out there that are, nutritional companies that are also, practitioners that are still selling those old ass products. And to me, that's not right. So what you need to do is you either need to find somebody local to you that is a practitioner that will sell you your supplements, whether they're Premier Research Labs or another company, or you need to find someone that you can work with remotely that can have them drop ship to you straight from the company. Because then if anything happens, like it's leaky bottle, or there's any question with how it arrived or broken, the company, you contact us as a practitioner, we contact the company, because you can't talk directly to the company because it's practitioner only, and then we handle it. They get you a refund, or they send you out a new product to replace your old product. And that's the way it should be. It shouldn't be like getting it off of Amazon and, wondering like, is this fresh, or getting it and looking at the date and finding out it's 5 years old. Because I've had so many people say, well, I'm just been getting it off of because I'll say, where are you getting it? Because I know you're not getting it from me. Do you have somebody local? Oh no, I've just been buying it off of Amazon. I'm like, you can't do that. And then I'll say, check the date, and then they look at it like, oh my gosh, they'll show me the label. I'm like, they haven't used that label in a couple years. Like, what's the date on it? And then you say, and they're like, oh man. And I'm like, that's why you weren't getting results, because you had old product that could have been sitting in 100-degree weather in a semi-trailer. You don't know what was going on with it. There's no recourse to get a good, clean product. So, if you're going to do that kind of stuff, then just don't do anything at all. Just try to eat healthy food. That's what I say.
And that's a great analogy, because you're taking a risk. I mean, we talked about Dr. Marshall. Thank God I didn't have the same issue that he had with taking a supplement, but I was not feeling good. And I could have said, well, you know what, I'm supposed to take this. I'll just keep taking it. And who knows what could happen. But I was smart enough to say, if I didn't feel this way before I was taking it. So if I'm feeling this bad while I'm taking it, something's not right. And once I stopped, that was right.
I had so I think I was like 19 when I first had my first gallbladder attack, and I didn't know I had gallbladder issues until I was maybe 40. I'm not sure exactly what age it was, but it was around 40-ish anyway. And so at that point, I was studying to be a naturopath, and I was almost a naturopath, and I was already trained in Chinese medicine. So that was where I started making the connection. But I'd been to doctors for years and years, and they said spastic colon, ulcerative colitis, this thing, that thing. But it was my gallbladder all along. And when I became educated about the gallbladder, I was like, oh my gosh, this has been going on since I was 19. Well, here I am not knowing. And I'm taking all these supplements that have magnesium stearate in them. Magnesium stearate is an excipient additive that's used to help the flow of the inside of the capsule so that it doesn't cake up and it doesn't clog up the machines and the capsule's released really easily. It's like a wax. Well, that damages our gallbladder so bad. And you think, well, it's just a little bit.
Right.
But it's something that, this country has such an inundation with gallbladder issues anyway, like underlying gallbladder problems, like the amount of people with gallbladder issues is just, whether they know it or don't, is just crazy. And the amount of gallbladder surgeries that happen every year is crazy. And the fact that, they could be fixed without having the surgery, but, just anyway, and then people die, they have, or just the bile flow is not good. So you end up with liver cancer or pancreatic cancer, or you just have poor digestion your whole life because the bile flow is not, like for whatever reason, or arthritis or whatever, because the gallbladder does, it's the wood element. So it's, the joints. So all those layers of things, all the people that have gallbladder, whether it's clinical or it's subclinical and they don't know they do, and it's not showing up on an exam, but they're taking these excipient laden products thinking I'm doing something really good for my body. I'm taking these digestive enzymes. It's going to help my digestion, but they're really punching their gallbladder every single time they take it. So it's like, here, have something good. Boom. Just kidding. And it's like, your body, you really think you're doing something good because you didn't know, and I did it for years. So I was only just damaging my gallbladder further and further and further and further. So finally, by the time I had the wake up call, I had to do even more work to gut my gallbladder to the point where I wasn't just suffering every single time I ate, laying awake all night, being in pain, having those crazy attacks where you get all colicky and you're thinking you're going to have to go to the ER, or puking up bile and blood and stuff. I mean, it's just so many people have problems with it. So, I mean, just something really simple like that is taking those supplements out of your diet. That could be your health, your health epiphany for the or whatever. So I just feel like this is just such an important topic, and we could go on for hours, probably in days, talking about it. But
Dr. Markham, it's a very important topic, and it's just the things that we discussed. Very simple. You don't have to get technical. Read labels. Know that supplements, 97.5% of them have binders and fillers. Read labels. Ask questions. And then there you go. And then if you want to research more into it, great. But I think we summed up a lot of things that we gave people to look at if you're going to take supplements, that these are the things that you can use to help you make sure you get the right ones. And granted, we're biased to Premier because we know how great it is. It's easier for us. We've been doing it for years.
It works.
Right. And we've been doing it for years, so that people could just make
it. It's not the only good brand, but
it's not. But it's.
Yep. Yeah. So if you find something that meets all those criteria.
Yeah. If
you find something that meets all those criteria that we talked about,
then you have a winner.
Absolutely. So the key is basically ask the questions, talk to your practitioner. Don't be afraid to ask questions, because if they're really out for your best interest, they will want to answer you and help you to understand it, because the more educated you are, the easier you're going to be to get results, which is going to get them what they want, because they want you to have results. So if they're, getting offended by it, then that's just your signal that maybe you need to find someone else to help handle your nutrition. So don't be afraid of that. And there's nothing wrong with, they work for you. Basically, your practitioner always works for you. You don't work for them. So you're paying them to help you with your health. You've hired them. So make sure that you're hiring people that, are doing the quality job for you, because that's what we should be doing. So we'll be back next week with a little bit more on specifics. We'll kind of nail down some things that, these are some things that you can look for. These are big red flags, basically. That'll be maybe how we talk about it. Like, these are the things to search for on your labels, to go like, oh, hell no, I need to get rid of this and go the other way whenever I see this on a label. I think that's what we'll kind of focus on next week. But if you have any questions about any of this stuff and you feel like you need a little bit more help, you can reach out to either one of us. I'll put Dr. Kelly's information in the text box for the video on the Facebook page. And Dr. Kelly, just go ahead and give your website for people who are watching on YouTube.
So it's a Bethpage.
You want to just verbally say it?
Yeah, BethPageChiropractic.com. Well, here I can. Let me just put it in right here.
So basically, Dr. Patrick Kelly from Bethpage Chiropractic and Dr. Michelle Markham from Genesis Naturopathic. And you can find us both on Facebook, Instagram, our websites, whatever. And you can find our email addresses through all of that as well, too. So we're both open to being contacted in all those different ways. So we will be back next week with a little bit more on the subject, but more geared towards what you can be on the watch for.
Awesome.
On your labels to stay away from. Thank you so much, Dr. Kelly, for being here. This is a super important topic for people to be more aware of and be more empowered with, for sure.
I agree. Thanks for having me on, and everyone have a great holiday weekend, and we'll get back next Friday.
Yes. Thanks, Dr. Kelly. Bye, guys.
You're welcome.